right, welcome everybody, and good to see you all here. And thank you once again for joining us for Telos Live. My name is Les. Hopefully, you can hear me. So I will just say, Jan, I can see you on the screen. Can you hear me okay? I did switch microphones. I just want to make sure. So, look, welcome to you all, and thank you for being here for Telos Live and another edition of it, and our first one for January as we start the year. My name, as you can see on the screen, is Les Price, and I'm one of the co-hosts of Telos Live and the Flame of Eternal Light. And what I'm going to do is actually just bring in my co-pilot for tonight, which some of you do know, and we'll introduce her. And that's the lovely Ella. So Ella, welcome. And do you want to say hi to everyone?
Thank you, Les. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. I cannot see you all on my screen, but those who I cannot see and those I can see, Happy New Year, guys. All the best.
Excellent. And look, thank you for being here tonight. And I know some of you are probably dialing in from England or Europe, because I know there's quite a few who actually registered today. So to you, welcome and good morning wherever you are. It's great that you can join us for this wonderful session. And before we begin today, and before we kind of invite our special guest, Alan Moore, to come and share with us, I just want to give those of you who may not be aware a little bit, and thank you, Francis. I will turn up my volume and just make sure that's working. So give me one moment. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So thank you for that. But I will just give everybody a little bit of a background of what Telos is and the Flame of Eternal Light, and then we'll introduce our special guest. So for those of you who are unaware, Telos and the Flame of Eternal Light was a group that Ella and myself really set up, and a community here in Melbourne, Australia, we set up at probably the beginning of COVID, when there was a big need to really bring together spiritually minded people and people who are awakening in their consciousness, but who are wanting to come and develop their gifts, develop their healing abilities, intuitive abilities, raise their consciousness, and most of all, make a difference at this time on this planet. And so we've been really privileged over the last 3 years as the community's grown to really run these Telos live sessions, which is about bringing heart-centered people together, connecting with what we call the Christ consciousness, or the greater consciousness that comes from light, that comes from love and purity, and bringing people together on a global basis, but also here in Melbourne in Australia. So if you're here tonight, we do welcome you. And before we start, I will also just share with you how the night will flow, because it is a bit different to what we normally do. So in a moment, what I'm going to be doing is just introducing our guest tonight, Alan, and then we'll bring Alan on, and Alan will be sharing, and it'll mainly be Ella and myself having like a fireside conversation with Alan for probably about 30 minutes or so, with a number of different questions. And during that time, you'll all be muted. After that, I'm going to hand over to Alan, and Alan's going to take us through a healing meditation and a journey. He might do some spiritual sharing with you about what he's feeling impressed to share. And then at the very end of the night, we will then bring everybody into gallery mode and get everybody on the screen. And that's where you'll have an opportunity if you do have any questions. And I will encourage you, if you do have questions tonight, put them in the chat. I will be facilitating, so I'll be taking a look at the chat. And if there's anything there, we can answer that at the end of the night. So look, I think I've said enough. So I think we'll get to the most important part of tonight, and the reason probably you're all here. And that is really to welcome Alan Moore. And I connected with Alan and Ella as well in December. I also spoke to Alan probably early November, and really had this deep connection with him and the work that he's been doing through the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. But Alan is currently the chair of the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary. On leaving school, he went and took up a career in television and had a career of maybe 47 years behind the camera, working for the BBC, and then actually becoming the head of communications for ITN, working globally with producers and television networks. And so he's had a depth of experience there, but it was really when he was about 19 where his mother, who had an interest in clairvoyance, introduced him to Harry Edwards, and he had a meeting and a connection at a live audience, which probably changed the path of his life. And so since then, Alan's been a firm believer in healing. He gives healing and shares healing with his wife, Tracy. They both work at the sanctuary and volunteer and have been volunteering for a long time. And I think the important thing is Alan's actually been through his own healing journey. And so he's got his own testimony, which he'll share tonight. And at the moment, he's just a passionate advocate for healing, which is why he was willing enough to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, or maybe even earlier, to join all us Aussies over here to share a little bit about Harry Edwards and the Harry Edwards Sanctuary. So look, put your hands together. I'm going to bring him on, and let's welcome Alan to the platform. Wonderful. So Alan, welcome, and thank you for being here tonight.
Well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. And yes, it is early morning, but you know, it's not too early to get out of bed.
Not too early, yeah. Well, we really welcome that. I know it's very cold over there. It's been a cold Christmas and winter after, you know, and we're experiencing hot weather here. But we really appreciate the time and the energy. And best of all, Alan, you are joining us from the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary.
Yes, Tracy and I were working here all day yesterday. And as it was, as you say, Les, an early start here for us. We stayed overnight in one of the bedrooms and got up 6:30, I think our alarm went off, had an early breakfast, and now I'm down here sitting in the sanctuary, the room where Harry Edwards worked and did a lot of his healing back in the 50s, 60s and into the 70s. A lovely room. We still use it for healing now, even though we do have couches in a couple of our other rooms, which we call the peach room and the green room for obvious reasons. That's the colour they are done in. And, you know, what a lovely place, lovely energy, lovely atmosphere.
It is. Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for joining us. So, Alan, look, I suppose the first question we're going to open up with today is, you know, probably a big question, but I mean, how did your spiritual journey, you know, you mentioned in your bio that at 19 you had this interaction, but how did your spiritual journey and connection with Harry Edwards actually start and open up?
My mum. I was a teenager, passed my driving test at 17. My dad wasn't interested in spiritual matters, so I used to, any opportunity to drive my dad's car, I'd take my mum to spiritualist churches, and she'd go there to listen to the readings, watch the platform mediums, etc. And I used to sit at the back. And, you know, I couldn't help, even as a teenager then, when I might have minds and other things, I didn't have a mobile phone back in those days. So I used to end up listening to whatever was being said. And I got sort of interested. And then my mother, when I was 19, decided to take my dad by the scruff of his neck to see Harry Edwards. He was doing a platform demonstration of healing in Carshalton in South London. And the three of us went along that night. And my dad was an engineer, scientist, very much a skeptic. And he was sort of a little bit taken back by what he witnessed that night. And my dad, being my dad, needed to investigate further and find out how it was done, you know, what happened, etc. Anyway, to cut a long story short, he trained as a healer with the SNU and ended up working as a healer at Balham Spiritualist Church. And therefore I was in my early 20s at that time, and I was sort of interested in it. And I used to sit in circle with my mum and dad and with a few other people, others who'd been healers and mediums for some years. And I enjoyed doing that and was very interested. And then I met a lady at the age of 23, coming up 24, and I got married. And therefore my mind went in a different direction completely. We bought a house, had 4 children. I worked every hour that I was given. And for the next 30 years, that was my life. But my mum and dad got more and more involved in Balham Spiritualist Church. My dad became the president and was so for over 30 years. My mother was a platform medium and also ran quite a lot of the activities at the church. And my mother kept in contact with Harry Edwards Sanctuary. I've got photos of my dad here at the sanctuary with Harry Edwards sitting out in the gardens. And there was this connection and involvement that I was very much on the sidelines of. but I knew what was going on. And that's how I sort of got interested, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you want me to carry on?
Well, there's a powerful story, I think, like especially for your dad. I know I had a career in IT, and when I opened up spiritually, it was a huge shift for me to go from that left brain to start to open up the right brain, and and to be aware of that. So for your dad to have that experience, and then 30 years like at Balham Spiritualist Church, it's a big shift, isn't it?
It is. I mean, during part of that time, obviously he was still at work. He didn't actually retire from his full-time work to 65, and then he carried on working part-time. But as president of the church, I mean, that took up most of his time when he wasn't doing work for money, because everything he did for the church was voluntary, just like we do here at Harry Edwards. And my mum and him, that was their life, really, revolving around spiritualism.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm going to hand to Ella in a moment soon for a question, but I just have one more beforehand, and that is, obviously you had this career in television, in broadcasting. Obviously that was a path that your soul and journey needed to take. But, that experience that you've had in television, media, communications, etc., what was the greatest lesson that you probably took away from that more career journey for you?
I suppose in some ways compassion. I worked with a lot of journalists, and some of them were compassionate people and some of them were not. And I think witnessing in journalism when they haven't got that compassion made me turn the other way. And I was forever having to remind reporters and presenters and things, about that situation. I was never backward at coming forward. Even though I was working for them, they were the boss when we were out on the road or in the studio or wherever. But I learned quite a lot from that experience. And I also learned about risk, because one of the things in life is if you never, ever take a risk, you're not going to go very far. Because almost every step we make, every time we leave the front door and go out, there's a risk factor. Whether we're driving, walking, whatever we're doing. And the whole of life is like that. When you have a relationship, you meet somebody, it's a risk, isn't it? Whatever the outcome from that first encounter is. And I think I've just taken that through my life, thinking, when a decision comes up, it's a yes or no, but don't sit on the fence. Make a decision. And I always talk to people when I'm talking about their lives, and often people who have been through a traumatic period, they're not quite sure what lies ahead of them. And I always say to them, treat everything as a corridor with closed doors. And as you go down that corridor, you can walk past all those closed doors to the end of the corridor, but you'll never know what's behind them. If you open the door and peep inside, you might see something interesting. You might see something that doesn't interest you and you close the door. But if you don't peep inside, you don't know what opportunities you could be missing. And I think a lot of that sort of feeling that I have now relates from my early days at work. So, television was fun, but I think I learned a lot as well.
Yeah, thank you. And that's an interesting takeaway, taking away compassion from that experience, and just taking from your little metaphor there about sitting on the fence. Somebody once said to me, sitting on the fence will often give you splinters. So it's better to make a decision, to go this way or that way. Ella, do you have a question for Alan?
I have hundreds of questions. I can't wait.
You only get one or two, Ella, and then some more.
Turn. Okay, so by now, Alan, I am connected with Harry Edwards, and he is coming from me when I'm doing healing. And also, when I was connected with him, I've been shown a replica of the healing sanctuary in England, Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, and I've been told by him that I will be building. I have really quite a few details how this healing center and psychic school supposed to look like. Okay, I want to think that we all know who Harry Edwards is, but perhaps a few people are not aware of Harry Edwards. So please, would you like to, just in the short version, not too short, tell us about the Harry Edwards bio, please?
Okay, well, about 130 years ago, in 1893, Harry Edwards was born. He was born in South London, and I'll skip through his childhood days because that's not really what everybody knows him for. But anyway, at the age of 14, he started an apprenticeship in the print business. And that was a 7-year apprenticeship, which took him up to the age of 21. And that was 1914, the start of the First World War. And he enrolled in the army. He rose during the war to the rank of captain, but he travelled, as many people did in those days during that period. And he ended up in Persia, which is now Iran, and was working out there with the army and with civilians. And it just came about that when people were injured or unwell, Harry Edwards seemed to have something about him that people, felt better from. So I'm not saying he went out there and did anything miraculous, but people used to come to him because they felt that whatever he did, when he was around them, it improved how they were, and they got better. And he was known to all the locals out there as the healer, and that's what he was nicknamed. Harry was the healer. Anyway, he didn't think much of it. He just went through the First World War, and at the end of the war, when he came out, he went back to Balham and had a print shop, stationer's shop in Balham, in South London, and he ran that for many years. I think he ran over 20, in fact. But it was from there right through the 20s and into the 30s. And it was in the mid-30s, when Harry himself was in his 40s, that he was getting involved in spiritualism, involved in mediumship and healing. And it was a medium who actually told him then he could become a healer. And obviously the history of what had happened in the war, he talked to people about. And they said, you've got a gift. And anyway, Harry developed that gift, as we all now know. And that took him into the Second World War. And in the Second World War, he was in the Home Guard, but he was then becoming quite famous in healing. And he was a bit of an entrepreneur, and he liked standing up and talking to people and doing demonstrations. And that's what he was doing, because he got a lot of his experience from being interested in politics. And he'd stood previously as the Liberal candidate on a number of occasions. So he was used to the standing up at somewhere like Marble Arch and speaking to the public and talking all about the politics. So he took that into the healing. So he could stand up and talk about healing. And he just became one of those people who, against all the normal reactions of the church and of the medical society and all that, he just carried on and soldiered on, because obviously there was so much criticism from the clergy and from the doctors and hospitals and all that, he just fought through it, and he became very famous. And by the time we got into the 50s, he was receiving 10,000 letters a week asking for distant healing. And distant healing was by far the biggest part of his life. And it was in 1946, he decided to hand the print business over to his brother. And he bought this house that I'm sitting in today, here near Guildford in Shear. And his sister, his wife, Phyllis, and his 4 children all moved into this lovely home. But he opened the doors for healing. 1 day a week it started, and then it went up and up and up. I can carry on.
It's quite an amazing story.
Alan.
Yeah, thank
Probably
you.
very valuable for our audience would be to get this book. I have this book from England. And then because Harry Edwards, he wasn't only the healer, he was excellent the medium, yes. And I read in the book, he could actually perform materialization and and all kind of the mediumship. He is addressing.
He did in those days, Ella, he did in those days, but Harry Edwards, because he wanted healing to be recognised by the medical profession and the clergy, he decided to separate mediumship from his healing practice. And he dedicated the sanctuary to healing. Yes, he was an excellent platform medium and got involved in trance and all other aspects of it. But he decided he wanted to be recognised, and he felt that the mediumship side of what he was doing wasn't going to help him get accepted for healing. And therefore, he put that aside and focused on healing and dedicated his sanctuary to healing. So in the 60s and into the 70s, you had no mediumship taking place here at the sanctuary. He focused just on the healing side of it. And it's quite ironic, really. He was up against barriers throughout his life. And it was in the year that he died, or within a year of him dying, that actually the medical profession agreed that doctors could refer their patients to healers. And it was after his death when that was announced, which was an awful shame. But still, Harry, where he is now, would have known all about it, for obviously.
And it's a wonderful distinction, obviously, that need, and for him to discern a need to separate and to focus just on the healing and hold that space at the sanctuary for that. Alan, look, obviously at the peak of it, because, at some stages he was actually on stages, like I think it was 6,000 people, was it? It was like Royal Albert Hall, these big platforms. What was it that kind of drew people at that time to want to come at that level? Like, we wouldn't see that today, but back then, what was it that drew them to him and to come to those sessions?
I think people after the Second World War, they'd been through so much bereavement, obviously, in the war, so much shortage of everything, that as you went into the beginning of the 50s and through the 50s, there was still that feeling amongst so many people. And yeah, we didn't have the outlets that we have today. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the TV channels, all the various bits and pieces. And therefore, I think there was that opportunity to go out, opportunity to see somebody who maybe they've read about in the newspaper, and, just experience it for themselves. And as I just said a few moments ago, he was getting 10,000 letters every week. Now, there's no way anybody can manage 10,000 letters a week, let alone 10,000 letters in a year. So he had to have a lot of people help him.
That's it.
And that built up his healing practice. But yeah, I think it was just the timing of it after the war that really made that peak.
Yeah.
Just like COVID again. COVID has done a similar thing, because people in COVID have turned in directions that they would not have turned in 5 years ago. COVID made a big change.
And I know there's a couple of people here, and there's others too that will listen in, who have gone through their own healing crisis, or currently maybe going through a journey where they're needing healing. I know you had a profound experience of this yourself, and I'm not sure whether you'd be open to share a little bit about that and how it made an impact for you.
Well, it's twofold, really. Firstly, going through my life, I did healing. I wasn't a trained healer, but whenever loved ones, family, friends were unwell, I'd always send them distant healing. But then every mother does that. Every parent does that. Every child does that for their parents when they're unwell, unknowingly, because you're sending out that positive energy. So, every one of us can be a healer. It's just in thought. But when I got to my 50s, I was 54, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, it never worried me as the fact that I had it as much as it worries many people. And I think that's because of my belief and my background. And my father was a healer, so he gave me healing, obviously. But I went to a local spiritualist church in South London, Hackbridge Spiritualist Church, and had healing there with the healers. And it was after I'd been going there a few weeks, one of the healers said to me, why don't you do this, Alan? And I just shrugged it off, thought, oh, I've got a busy job, I've still got my family, etc. I'm too busy. Anyway, I went through the prostate cancer treatment, and that was fine. I'm still here 20 odd years later. So that was all worked well. But I went to see one of those healers again, probably a year or so later. And he said to me, do you remember me talking to you about being a healer, Alan? Have you done anything? And no, I haven't. Anyway, he was the person, a nice guy. I can't remember his surname. His name was David. I got interested. So I spoke to the church there, Hackwood Spiritualist Church, and I started training there as a healer and spent 2 years doing my training. And it was during that period that I sat in circle doing further development, mediumship, etc. And it was in that circle that I met my second wife. I met Susan, who had cancer. She'd had cancer for about 4 years at the time, lung cancer. And I got very close to her in our development. And then, we went out together, had a courtship, and ended up getting married. But she was terminally ill through that and had several operations. But her belief in spirit, she was a Reiki master, and she did a lot of Reiki teaching, crystals, color therapy, all that side of it. And I worked with her. I was her gopher, basically, and helping her all the way through it. And yeah, she taught me Reiki and crystals, etc. And we went on courses. But her belief in spirit and getting her through all that was just wondrous. And I'm afraid the cancer did get her in the end. About 18 months after we got married, the cancer took over. But she fought it for so long and with such courage. And at that time, I'd started being a healer at the Harry Edward Sanctuary. And I was working here, and she used to come here with me. And she'd receive healing, and she would spend time here. As a Reiki healer, she couldn't do healing because she wasn't trained to the standards required. But she used to enjoy the energy and just being here. And that really, the combination of my cancer and my upbringing, I suppose, throughout my life, and then Susan's belief, all just firmed it all up for me that this is what I wanted to do. And this is where I can enjoy what I do, helping others overcome whatever's going on in their lives.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think it's useful for people to hear that journey. And, I've had a ex-partner too, that went through a similar journey and had that strong belief. So I think that belief and that conviction and that love of spirit, I think that's really powerful. Ella, did you have another question for Alan? I know you've got many. You might have to pick one from your...
I zoom out for a moment, listening to you, Alan. I just wonder if I'm sure you know this because you observe, I understand you observe Harry Edwards when he was working, yes, during healing. Would he target the conditions and symptoms will go straight into this? For example, if you know that your patient has a liver cancer, yes? So some people will go straight into the liver with the hands. Others will recognize that the healing energy divine healing energy has its own mind. It's extremely intelligent. And we can hold those hands, but the healing will go where it's supposed to go. So please, can you verify how you approaching the healing?
My belief and the way I approach healing is the fact that I'm not doing any healing. I'm a facilitator.
Yes.
When somebody is not well, whether it be mind, body, spirit, whatever it is going on in their life, the only person who can heal them is themselves at the end of the day. And therefore, it's that energy within them that is often lacking. So our own immune systems, our own bodies are, if I cut my finger, it'll heal itself. I don't have to do anything. You know, if I get a cold, I get the flu, all right, antibiotics and, you know, such like can help, but our bodies repair ourselves. Our bodies don't always do it properly. Hence, some of the ailments, especially a lot of the conditions, emotional, mental conditions, the body just can't deal with it. There's too much going on inside that body for them to cope. And therefore, the healer's job is to put that person in a lovely big envelope of energy. And that energy is for the body to use as the body sees fit, working with the universe. So yes, if somebody has a liver problem, I would quite often, in going around the body, concentrate on the liver as I'm doing it. But I'm not medically trained. It's just like anything going on in the body. Sometimes the cause of the problem isn't the actual bit we see. I mean, people have problems with their walking, problems with, you know, their energy and things like that. And quite often it's got nothing to do with that part of the body at all. And therefore, as a non-medic, as a healer, my job is to put that energy around them so that the universe, working with the person, can actually draw that energy to where it's needed the most. And that is the biggest thing we always say. It goes to the area that is needed the most. So placing my hands on their head, their shoulders, their foot, anywhere is fantastic if that's where the area is, and that's good. But that energy might be going all over the body, doing anything. And Harry Edwards, when he did his healing, he always said it was very simple. Now, if you watch the old photos or even videos of Harry Edwards' healing, he did it differently to we do it today. He did a certain amount of movement and manipulation. We are not medically trained. And that would be the first turn off if we started doing things like that with all the authorities. We do healing non-invasive at all, just purely that energy around them. And Harry always said, even though he did the manipulation, and he did do that in his early days, he always said, it's intent. And distant healing proved that time and time again. Because with the distant healing, you've got no physical contact, you've never seen the person, you don't know what they look like. All you've got possibly is a bit of paper which has got a letter, a telephone message, something like that on it. And you're just focusing on the person with intent, asking the universe to put that person in the big bubble of energy to help them. And we do that now, every day of the year, we're doing it. And as I say, Harry was getting 10,000 a week back in the 50s into the 60s. And the feedback from that was fantastic. Now, not everybody responds to healing, as we all know. It's, you know, it's a funny old thing. Harry would say in some of his books, 2 people would come to him, identical conditions, identical treatments. One would respond to healing and the other one didn't. He didn't know why. None of us know why. We just put that it's the universe and it's to be. We've got to just believe that that is the way. We can only provide something, whether the body uses it or not is outside of our control. But just getting people to relax and calm. And when people write to the sanctuary or contact the sanctuary, the healing starts from the moment they make contact, the moment they put pen to paper, because they are asking for help. And we've all got free will. And I always say to everybody, do not be afraid to ask, because if you ask and nothing happens, you've lost nothing. But if you ask, there is a chance that something might happen. So always ask. And we've had so much feedback. We get correspondence from people in an email or something in this modern day, and we'll put them in our distant healing book. But before we have responded to that request, we'll get another contact from them saying how much better they're feeling. And we think, they're feeling better and we haven't even started. And that's because it started from the moment they asked.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good to
Thank
hear.
you, Alan. I do appreciate it.
And also the evidence of that distant healing and the impact that that can have on people, you know, and so thank you for sharing that. Alan, just, you know, I know you brought it up before that things obviously, once Harry Edwards passed, that things started to shift in the medical fraternity in England. Can you tell us a little bit more? Because you did mention to me in November, December, that now there are healers working, sometimes coming into hospitals or working with the medical fraternity. How has that changed and what are they doing there now to support people?
Well, one of the big turns has obviously been COVID. Now, prior to COVID, we were making headways with the medical profession. But when you think of the number of years since Harry started that, we're going back 60, 70 years, it's been extremely slow. And, you know, there's been a lot of obstacles in the way. Even the media, if they can ridicule it, they'll ridicule it. They'll find a way to do so. And finding genuine journalists on that to put good reports in and report things accurately and do the research is never been easy. So when COVID hit us 4 years ago, it was a time, people were so desperate. People were so horrified by what was going on. They were frightened. And the media didn't help any of that. The media just stirred it up and made it even worse in many ways. And it was during that period that people were turning almost to anything. And healing really was one of those areas that so many people suddenly thought, I'm going to try that. I'm going to see if it's of any help. And they did. And they found it was of help, whether it be by listening to a talk, whether it by having some healing, or whether it just purely be by having a belief that there was something else out there to help them. And that was the time, I think, when the medical profession was so desperate. They were so stretched and they were not getting any support themselves. Even the doctors and the nurses were going down left, right, and centre with COVID. And everything was so stretched that as we came out of COVID and we were offering people healing, they were all taking it. And we've had groups of nurses coming up to the sanctuary here on day retreats. We've been to the hospitals, etc. And we've been sponsoring some healers working in the hospitals for some time. Now, a lady by the name of Angie Buxton King runs the Sam Buxton Sunflower Healing Trust. And Angie, with her late husband Graham, over 20 years ago, started working in hospitals and were making steady but slow progress over the years in getting more hospitals to accept healers. And this had been going some time. And some years back, we got involved with Angie and we ended up sponsoring some healers working in the hospitals. They weren't Harry Edwards healers. These were, in fact, Reiki healers. But we believe the importance of getting healers of any description into the hospitals was important. Getting the door to be opened, even if it was only just slightly open, we needed to open those doors so they could experience it. And I remember Tracy and we went down to Barnstable to the hospital there, where a lovely lady by the name of Sarah was a healer. Harry Edwards was sponsoring her along with the Sam Buxton Sunflower Healing Trust. And talking to her colleagues, talking to the medics and the non-medics at the hospital, how revolutionary her presence had been, how it had been so accepted that A&E, outpatients, wherever, when the doctors were having difficulty putting a cannula in, you know, treating a patient, they would phone up and say, can you send the healer over? The healer would go across and just calm the patient down. And that's what the medics needed. They needed to be able to do their procedures and do their checks when somebody was so nervous and so frightened, it was stopping them doing their work. And the healer just did it time and time and time again. So the hospital were fantastic. Healers are important to us. And other hospitals around the country are also doing that. And they're gradually learning. One of the problems is money, of course, because some healers are volunteers like ourselves here at the sanctuary. But if you've got a 30, 40-year-old healer who's got children, a mortgage to pay, they can't just volunteer all the time. They have to earn a living. And therefore, when they go into hospitals, if the hospital says, I'd like you to work 2 days a week, please, from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, they can't volunteer. So hospitals would have to pay. And this is one of our problems at the moment, getting a hospital, the finance people to agree to pay for a healer. They say, healer? I've got nurses, I've got doctors, I've got porters, I've got all my staff to pay for, and you now want me to pay for a healer. Another hurdle. It's got to get up to the high level within the hospitals to say the healer is as important as the surgeon, as important as the nurse. And when we do get to that stage, I think it will just go straight across the country then. Once we get the hospitals doing it more and more, it'll just go and everybody will have it. And that day is to come. I know that day will come.
And it's wonderful to hear. I'm not sure whether in Australia we're so far down the track with that. There's obviously some integrative hospitals that are including lots of different things. But maybe that's a mission for a few of the healers that are joining us here, the Melbourne, the Australian ones. Maybe if that's your calling, there might be ways to open those windows, because yes, the hospitals and people need it, and it's a great gift. Alan, I know you're going to take us in a little process and a bit of a journey and some healing and a meditation soon. But before we do that, I think there's 2 things I'd like to just cover off with you. The first one is, obviously for people that are here who want to develop their spiritual gifts, especially the healing abilities, and to be that vessel or vehicle for spirit, what would be your guidance? What would be maybe the 2 or 3 things you would say that as a healer, if you want to develop that further, if you want to grow that connection and become a greater vessel for healing, what would you recommend? What would be the 2 or 3 things to deepen that connection?
The start of any healing journey really means you've got to look inside yourself. Sometimes people can do that themselves, and sometimes they need help. And sitting in a healing development is always good. But at the end of the day, you've got to get inside you. Because if you're going to work with people who are going to come to you with all sorts of conditions, they'll come to you with traumas, they'll come to you with bereavement, they'll come to you with a number of things. And if you're going to be that listening ear and that support and be able to give them some empathy, you've got to be in the right place yourself. I was going to say you've got to practice what you preach, but what I mean is the other way around. You've got to preach what you practice. So you've got to be somebody who can be calm, knows how to relax, and knows how to switch off and park up the worries. We all get worries, but we've got to know how to deal with the worry and the stress and put it aside and park it up. So you've got to learn about yourself before you go into healing. And if you want to go into healing, you've got to think, what sort of person am I? Am I a compassionate person? Do I like listening to people? Do I like hearing their stories? Do I support them? How do I feel about my own family, my loved ones? Do I hug them? Am I that type of person? Because in healing, whether it be physically or whether it just be in your mind, you are putting a big cloak of protection around people. You are giving them a hug, because when somebody is grieving, somebody has just been told the day before they're terminally ill, all these sort of things, you've got to know how to be with those people. What not to say is by far more important as to what is you should say. Because so many people will come to you and they just need a listening ear. They need to offload. And you are sitting there, and the healing starts from the moment you meet these people, because they might be talking to you for 10 or 15 minutes, but you are sending out that vibration and you are putting that big bubble of healing energy around them. And quite often, that is what they need more than anything else. They don't need to lay on a couch sometimes with you going around their body, giving them healing. They just need to offload and be sitting in that beautiful energy whilst they do so. And the number of people who come back to us afterwards and say, what happened? I feel so different, just because they were unable to do that. And we're all different. But if you're gonna be a healer, you've got to heal yourself. You've got to make sure that you are compassionate, and you've then got to say, is this what I want to do? Because at the end of the day, you're there to help other people. You don't want to bring into their lives your problems. So therefore, do I want to help people? And if you do, then do a foundation course. Go and find out about healing. Before you go and sign up to anything, go and make some inquiries. Talk to healers. Talk to people. And just make sure, cross the T's, dot the I's. Yes, this is what I want to do. And then set off down your path. Whether it be a Reiki healer, whether it be a spiritual healer, whatever type of healing, just make sure that it's the right thing for you to do.
Yeah, it's nice to hear. And I think it's nice for people here to take away 2 or 3 things. And I know some people here have been healing for a long time, but I think it's nice to hear a reminder of the things that are important, on their journey. So that compassion, being able to listen, being able to know you're ready, and obviously healing the self first. So Alan, what I'd like to do is just bring up a couple of photos of the sanctuary that you sent to me, just so people get a bit of a feel for the sanctuary. And we'll talk a little bit about the place itself before we lead into your meditation and healing journey. I'll just acknowledge, Francis, thank you for your question. I'm going to save that till the end because I think it's a good question when we all come onto the screen. All right. But let me just share my screen, and hopefully these pictures will come up, and Alan can just give us a feel, because I think visually it'll just give people a bit of a feel. So Jan, has that come up on your screen okay? Yeah. So Alan, do you want to walk us through, just talk us a little bit about these places and what we're seeing here, and I'll just move through the slides.
Yeah, well, that's the back of the house. It's a lovely, original house was an Edwardian house, built in the 1800s. And it's had a number of extensions to it over the 100 and whatever number of years it's stood there. But that is the view from the back garden when you're looking back at the house. And the upstairs, fairly centre in that picture, is a room called the Brazier Room. And that is where a lot of our students go on their courses. And we have workshops up there and general meetings. The staff meet up there. We have our trustees board meeting in that room. And it's sort of at the end of the house. So to the right, where you see the peaked roof and the bedrooms below, also the windows below, which are bedrooms. You've got the one right at the very top, the sort of attic bedroom. I think that's number 6, bedroom 6. And the one below it is bedroom 2. Now I've got to think about which layout, looking from this angle. But we have 6 bedrooms in the house, and Harry Edwards and his family slept in those bedrooms back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And these are the rooms where retreat guests will stay, where students will stay, where Tracy and I stayed last night. We were in one of the rooms. And we're not a hotel, so we don't open up as a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb or anything of that nature, but we have the rooms available for anybody coming to the sanctuary on courses, for healing, for workshops, whatever they do, they have the opportunity to stay in the house.
Oh, thank you.
And we're hoping to convert more rooms into bedrooms in due course, depending on the demand. Now that is the rose garden. That is a beautiful garden. It doesn't look quite like that now in the middle of January, but the water is still being pumped, the fountain is still working. That pond was put in, I believe, it wasn't their original, but it was put in probably best part of 100 years ago. And it's been refurbished a number of times. In fact, it was last refurbished during COVID. When we had, there's the pond just over the back of that hedge. That is the rose garden with the pond going from one end to the other. And it was refurbished during COVID, when the place was closed to the public. We let the workmen get on with the job during that time.
And Alan, where exactly is the sanctuary? Where's it located? Like, in the UK?
Right, the nearest village is a village of Shear. So if you know the south of England at all, we've got two big towns, Guildford and Dorking. And between Guildford and Dorking are a number of beautiful Surrey villages. One of them is Shear, and we are about 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles outside the village. And we're just in the Surrey Hills, in that beautiful countryside with beautiful views. And the view you're seeing there, the table and chairs at the bottom right, that is where our guests go and sit outdoors on a nice day, and where people come into the lounge terrace.
It looks very enticing, even to us Australians. It's sunny. It looks like it's warm. It's
It's beautiful. I mean, that photograph, I'm trying to think when we had the photo.
This wasn't from your wedding, was it?
That was taken in September. That was September 22, I think it was. September 20, well, or was it 21? It might have even been September 21. I think that could have been when we had our anniversary.
That's the anniversary of the sanctuary, yes?
Yeah, so it would have been in 21 when we had the 75th anniversary. So yeah, that was just after the pond had been refurbished.
I think it's just nice for everybody to get a bit of a feel for the place itself. So, Alan, I think it's a good time. I'm going to hand over to you, and I think we'll open up. We'll leave you on the screen, and you can just share and take us on a journey. I know you need to change your sound, so while I unpin ourselves, we're going to leave you to it for probably about 20 minutes or so. And also, Sean, I got your question too. I will ask that at the end. It's another good question for Alan. All right.
Okay. As Liz said, I'm here in the sanctuary, and the painting of Harry Edwards is over my shoulder over that shoulder. So there is Harry. He's hung on that wall for many years. So the energy in this room is fantastic, and the energy in the whole of the grounds here. We've got 30 acres of land around this house, of which 10 acres is used by our local farmer. He raises his cattle or grows his crops on the field, changing it each year like farmers do. But the other 20 acres is open to the public, to our clients, to all our visitors to wander around. And it's beautiful, tranquil, and it's just such a relaxing place to be. But here in this room that I'm in now, Harry Edwards did his healing, and we do the healing in here as well. We do have a couple of nice healing rooms with lovely couches where people can lay out on the couch and receive their healing, or they can sit in an armchair. But in this part of the building, we also do the healing for anybody who wants to get healed and be in this lovely sanctuary. So now I'm just going to ask you to sit back and relax. I'm going to take you on a little visualization, meditation, and then just lead you into some lovely healing. But the healing energy is going to be around you all the time. You're in a bubble of energy now, all of you. So if you want to fully relax and turn off your cameras, just turn off your cameras. And so you can just lay back in your armchair or on your couch, wherever you are. I cannot see you at the moment, but just so that you feel privacy, you do whatever suits you best. And if it's safe to do so, please close your eyes. Make sure you're comfortable, your head and shoulders are supported, and your neck. I'd like you just to focus on your breath for a few moments. That life force that is with us throughout every moment of our entire lives. Take 4 or 5 seconds to exhale the waste air from your lungs, and then pause for 2 seconds before taking a lovely big inhale of fresh air. Just repeat that a few times, nice and slowly, exhaling the waste air, pausing, and then taking a nice big in-breath. Just allowing your bodies to be nice and relaxed. Because for any healing, it is important that we are relaxed. It's important that we can park up anything that's been going on in our lives today. Just put it aside. Some things are very important, but they can be put aside for a few minutes and you can come back to it later. And I'd like you to visualize that you're standing on a cliff top, high above the coastline and overlooking a wide bay, taking in that beautiful view of the deep blue sea. And just watch as the surf rolls up the beach and look out to sea, and all is calm. A few sailing boats making their way along the coast. So just stroll along that cliff top, watching and listening to the seabirds as they fly overhead. Enjoy that wonderful nature all around you. All is calm. Just a light breeze blowing through your hair. And try and maintain that visualization as you stroll along. Look down towards that lovely beach. And then follow the path that meanders its way down towards the shore. It zigzags down the side of the cliff. Might be a bit rugged in places, so just tread carefully. The wildflowers are so beautiful, just blowing in the breeze. Just visualize those colours, the blues, the lilacs, the yellows and the white. The gorse bushes cover the hillside and look so magnificent as they stand proudly there, protecting everything around them. And there is a pyramid of stones on the path. It has been built carefully with love. So just stop and admire. And you can bend down and pick up a stone and add it to the pyramid. You can wonder how tall that pyramid might one day become. And carry on down that path until you arrive at the edge of the beach. You walk across the pebbles to the long strip of sand leading to the water's edge. Kick off your shoes and step gingerly onto that warm sand. It's comfortable to walk on and squeezes up between your toes. And as you approach the water's edge, there is some seaweed that has been deposited overnight. In the middle of the seaweed are these beautiful shells. So choose a shell and hold it in your hand. Just feel the energy from that shell swept up. And stroll along the water's edge with your feet being caressed by the sea and the sand. And walk a little further into the sea to cool your feet. Enjoy the feel of that salt water all around you, lapping at your ankles. Just stroll along. Ahead of you is a beautiful palm tree, just a few feet from the water's edge. So make your way towards that tree. And then in the shade, sit down in this beautiful place. Lean back against the trunk of the tree and gaze at all the beauty around you, all that lies before you, and breathe in the lovely sea air. The seabirds are singing, the air is warm. You are relaxed and enjoying having all that beautiful healing energy surrounding you right now. So just focus again on your breath, taking time to slowly empty your lungs of the waste air, and then take a lovely big in-breath. Just remember to pause between each breath. I'd like you now to start at the top of your head and relax your scalp completely. Feel the skin of your forehead and of your temples relax. Allow your eye muscles to release and your jaw to soften. And let your ears, your nose, and your chin relax. And let this peaceful feeling flow down through the muscles of your neck. Feel it soothe your throat and dissolve any tension as it glides down to your shoulders, then to your upper arms, your forearms, wrists, and hands. And let this sensation of relaxation begin to fill your whole body. Feel it relax your chest, giving your heart room to grow more expansive, more loving, giving, and forgiving. And soften your tummy muscles and let this relaxation penetrate even deeper, releasing any tension from your internal organs. And let it wrap around you, enveloping you in love and in peace, as it softens the back muscles all the way down to the base of your spine. And continue to breathe in those deep, fluid breaths. And breathe in better health. Breathe in happiness and harmony. And breathe out any tension, any worry, any disease. Allowing anything that does not serve you to leave your body like a dark cloud. And send this peaceful feeling into your hips. Let it glide down your legs, relaxing you completely as it flows down to your knees, your calves, your ankles, and your feet. And allow any remaining tension from anywhere in your body to flow out through your toes, leaving the whole body feeling very comfortable, peaceful, and relaxed. And continue to breathe deep, relaxing breaths, feeling your tummy rise on the inhale and fall on the exhale. Notice how the air feels cooler as you breathe in and warmer as you breathe out. I would now like you to imagine a golden glowing ball of light about a foot above the crown of your head. And as you inhale, breathe that light in through the top of your head and let it flow down through the center of your body, all the way down to your tailbone. And then, as you exhale, breathe that light back up the way it came and out of the top of your head. And once again, breathe that golden light in through the top of your head and let it go down the center of your body, all the way down. And then breathe the light back up the way it came, all the way to the very top of your head. And repeat that once more for the final time, letting that golden light flow from the top of your head all the way down through your body. And then back up the way it came and out of the very top of your head. And now take your mind to your base chakra at the bottom of your spine and visualize a vibrant red glowing ball of light. This chakra brings you health, security, and dynamic presence. Feel it empower you as it connects you to the earth energies. You are radiating power and vitality. Breathe the color red in and out. And see yourself living your healthy ideal, feeling safe and grateful for radiant health and energy, and with a strong, balanced immune system. Feel how good it is to have all the energy you need to do all the things you love to do. Feel yourself healthier. And let this vibrant red chakra continue to glow and to spin as you move up to your sacral chakra, located between your base and your navel. Here you see a radiant, glowing orange ball of light. This chakra holds the energy of power, sexuality, and creativity. Breathe in a rich, beautiful orange color and feel it bring the gifts of being happy, enthusiastic, fulfilled, and prosperous. And see yourself being grateful for the abundance in your life. And let this chakra continue to glow and to spin as you move up to your solar plexus chakra, located a few inches above your navel. Here you see a beautiful sunny yellow glowing ball of light. As you breathe in the vibrant yellow color, feel it expand your joy, your intellect, your self-worth, and personal power. And feel the glowing yellow chakra empower you. Now move on up to your heart chakra at the center of your chest and visualize a beautiful soft green glowing ball of light. This is the chakra of love for yourself and for others. Let it glow, bringing gifts of compassion, self-acceptance, and the ability to love deeply. Breathe in this beautiful green light and let the feelings expand, seeing yourself living in perfect harmony with everyone in your life. Let it fill you with gratitude for this opportunity to live in this wonderful world. Feel your heart swell with compassion and with forgiveness for yourself and for others. And let this chakra continue to glow and to spin as you now gently move up to your throat chakra, visualizing a beautiful blue color. This chakra enables you to communicate with truth and with wisdom and express yourself with confidence. Breathing blue in and out, see yourself happily expressing your uniqueness through a creative outlet that you enjoy, such as singing, dancing, playing a sport, anything that you do for fun. And let this chakra continue to glow and to spin, and gently move up to your third eye chakra, located at the center of your forehead. See a beautiful indigo-colored glowing ball of light. As it glows, it expands your imagination, your psychic abilities, your inner knowing and wisdom, and feel fully supported by the universe as you pursue your personal growth goals, happily following your highest path. And let this indigo light continue to glow and to spin as you gently move up to your crown chakra. This is the chakra of spirituality, of thought, consciousness, and connection to the universe. Breathe in a beautiful white light and let this chakra glow as it brings you gifts of self-knowledge, spiritual connection, and bliss. See yourself living in wisdom and awareness, surrendering into divine love, joyfully contributing to the world in the way most meaningful for you. And let this chakra glow and spin as you now bring your awareness back to the golden glowing light above your head. Watch as the light transforms into a golden pot, and breathe it down through your crown chakra. Take it to your third eye, then your throat chakra, your heart chakra, solar plexus, and sacral chakra, all the way down to your base. And as you exhale, breathe it back up the way it came. And as the pot passes through each chakra, see it filling with gold coins, representing the gifts and attributes of each one. And visualize this beautiful pot of gold once again above your head, and now overflowing with sparkling gold coins. This is your unique pot of gold, filled with everything you could ever want. So just stay as you are, nice and relaxed. I'd like you to listen to this beautiful piece of music for a few minutes as we continue with the healing, and then I will gradually bring the healing session to a close. So just relax. finally, the great invocation. From the point of light that I am, I let light stream forth from the mind of God. Earth radiates with light. From the point of love within the heart of God, I let love stream forth from my heart. I am a channel radiating energy on earth. And from my centre, where the will of God is known, I let divine purpose guide me, the purpose which all masters know and serve. From the centre of the divine human race, let the plan of love and light work out. My love seals the door where evil dwells. I am the light and love and power, living God's plan on earth. Well, if you're still with me, you're not asleep, when you're ready, wiggle those toes and fingers and just slowly come back into your room. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And I'll now hand you back to Les.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you for taking us on a lovely little healing journey, and just nice to be in that energy. And the words that were coming to me, and it was interesting because I think it's relevant to a few people here tonight, is that often it's going to that place you just went to, and just connecting with the light, the love, and the compassion. And also that it's simple. Okay, I like that word from Alan. So, Alan, just as we kind of bring things to a bit of a close tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove our spotlighting. We're just going to bring everybody up in gallery view if you've got gallery view. And there's a few questions that people might have. There's a few that have come in, and maybe we will just share those as we finish up tonight. So, all right. So hopefully if you're in gallery view mode, you can see everyone else that's here tonight. And it's nice to just see their energy and connect with it as a group and as a collective. And again, thank you to Alan for taking us to that space of holding that. But a couple of just small questions for you. I mean, the first one was from Francis. And, Alan, there's quite a few people here tonight that are Reiki masters, or that have done Reiki 1 or 2 or want to do Reiki. But can you just explain a little bit of your differentiation between, what's the difference you feel between somebody who's trained with Reiki as compared to spiritual healing, which, is what you teach at the Harry Edwards Sanctuary?
Yeah, the healing that we teach here is much like the other healing organisations, certainly in the UK. We come under mother company, UK Healers, and they lay out requirements for healer training. So whether you're with the Healing Trust, the White Eagle Lodge, whatever healing organisation you're with, you abide by certain rules and regulations on what needs to be in a training course. It's a 2-year course to be a spiritual healer with almost anybody you do the healing course with. Here at the Sanctuary, we do that with 7 weekend modules. There's a lot of home working that goes on between the modules. There's so many hours of healing practice each student has to put in. In the early days, they start with their family and friends, and then they move on to working with the public. And it's quite a inclusive course of everything you need to know, because as I indicated earlier, you don't know who walks through the door when you're a healer. You don't know what baggage they're bringing with them. And you've got to be prepared for anything that's thrown at you, and knowing as much, as I said earlier, not what not to say as what to say. Now, with Reiki, I'm a Reiki master, and I have taught Reiki. And as I said earlier, my late wife was a Reiki master with dozens and dozens and dozens of students. Reiki is wonderful, and in the right hands, Reiki is fantastic. The danger that Reiki has is that some Reiki masters teach correspondence courses. You can learn Reiki 1 in 1 weekend. You can learn Reiki 2 in 3 months over a couple of weekends. You know, you've got a certificate saying you're a Reiki 2 healer, but there's nothing there to substantiate what experience and knowledge you have. Now, my late wife made sure that all her students carried on and came back to see her every month afterwards. It was a condition of her teaching that they practiced what they were taught and came back. And she was very good at doing all that. And I think most Reiki masters work extremely well, teach very well, and Reiki healers are as good a healer as anybody. But you cannot necessarily put that. It's like any tradesman, carpenter, plumber, whatever. You know, you've got most of them are perfectly good, wonderful at their job. And you always get the odd ones who are not. Now, you could have that with a spiritual healer who's been through our 2-year course as well. But the chances are far less likely, because to get through the 2-year course, they've had to do an awful lot of self-work on them in the early days, do lots of case studies, read a lot, practice a lot with the public as well as their family and friends. So you've got a lot more proof at the end of their 2-year course that they are in the right place to be let loose. And if we go to Reiki people like that, we don't know that until we know them. And I know some wonderful Reiki healers. I've worked with some wonderful Reiki healers. And before I came here to the sanctuary, I worked as a Reiki healer. So I know what I'm talking about. And I mean, some people will say, oh, no, they're all good. They're all perfectly all right. Great, that's your opinion. It's not mine.
And it's nice to hear that, because it is about the discipline and the practice. And like you said, it's a lot of the self-work. And I think any practitioner who's done their work has worked on themselves first before they're going out to others, but they've also gone through the practice and the discipline and the evidence. So thank you for sharing that. Another quick question for you, Alan, is because there's a few people here in Melbourne asking, do the Harry Edwards Sanctuary, do they teach online, or do you have to go to the sanctuary? So are there courses you do? Is there training that you do online as well?
We are developing online courses, but the proper 2-year course is not online. You can do a lot of the work. We have overseas students, but we do insist we see them face to face as well, and they get involved with the other students and with healing here in the sanctuary. But yes, there are online courses being developed as we speak, and we are going to be promoting those and probably expanding on that. They are wonderful in a CPD situation where you're doing your personal development. So after you're trained as a healer, you can do development. And just like every doctor, every nurse, every professional, we have to keep up with our subject, and we have to do our own development. So that is ideal, ideal thing to do online.
Excellent. Thank you. And the last question I have here, and it's from Jan. It's a good question because there's a lot of different opinions on this, which is, with healing, do you believe in needing to protect yourself before you do healing with others? And if so, what do you do to protect your own energy or yourself? So what's your perspective? Because I know different people have different perceptions.
Yeah. And we do it in different ways. It is important to protect yourself. I always remember my mother telling me years ago, as a platform medium and when my dad was a healer, she always said it's important that you don't take away from the room what other people bring into it. It's important that you are there for them. You listen, you hear all about the story they want to give you, but you don't take it home. And it's the same teachings, basically, for us as you would for a doctor or a nurse. When you think what doctors, nurses, school teachers even, what they all go through, what they witness and have to accept, it's very hard on them if they take that home with them. And it's the same with us. Now, the way I protect myself is I rely in my guides and the people around me. So when I go in and I first make contact with anybody and I'm attuning to the person, And I do quite a lot on telephone and on Zoom as well. I'm giving healing to people all over the world, you know, whether they be in New Zealand or the States or Japan, doesn't matter. And I do exactly the same thing. I don't want to absorb any negativity that might be coming from them. So I just ask my guides to protect me. And it works. It always works. It doesn't mean that I don't think about them at other times, because I've got a number of clients who've got, you know, quite major issues going on in their lives. And yeah, I'll get up in the morning and I'll think about that person. I'll think, oh, they're going to the hospital today, or I'll send them some healing. Or I wonder how they got on yesterday with what they were doing. They're still on my mind. I'm still thinking about them, but I don't let their condition drag me down. And that's important. And it's part of the healer training. Different people will do it in different ways, but that's how I do it.
Thank you very much. So thank you for that, Alan. And I know just because of time, we're going to have to almost finish it up there, because I know you've got meetings in London because it's just the start of your day. We're all winding down here. But I just want to thank you and acknowledge you tonight for being here and really for sharing so generously and openly. And I just want to reflect a couple of comments in the chat, which was one from Lisa, who just said, thank you. You know, I find it interesting every time I listen to you and I learn something new. So, and the other one to acknowledge is also Amanda Conroy. Amanda's just mentioned that in Melbourne, we also have a group of healers that go into hospitals and homes. So, you know, maybe if people are here and want to connect with that, they can find out a bit more from Amanda. But Ella, do you want to just say thank you to Alan before we finish up for tonight?
Thank you. It was a real privilege, Alan, to have you tonight as a guest speaker for our Telos. And I hope this is the beginning of the beautiful friendship based on the heart. And to all who attended our Telos Live, thank you very much from my heart to your heart, and see you next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
I'll just say
Thank
to
you,
finish
Ella.
up, this is a bit of a reconnection for Ella, because Ella was very young when she was in Poland and had this connection with Harry Edwards and went to a healing session there. So it's a bit round circle. And I know in our groups, Harry Edwards is coming in with a lot of the work that we're doing. So we're really feeling the presence. A real privilege to have you, Alan. And look, thank you for being so generous, because I know you're floating between London and Spain, where you're making us all jealous, because when I talked to you last time, you were in Spain, but that's where you spend part of your life. But we really appreciate it. And it's also nice to just have the energy of the sanctuary in the background. So thank you to Tracy and yourself. I see Tracy's on, who stayed the night just so you could have that, you know, show us all of the sanctuary there.
Tracy's probably asleep.
Or she's still doing yoga, one of the two.
And
All
good
good.
for her.
Everyone give Alan a round of applause and just thank him tonight. And a big thank you to all of you for joining us. I'm going to let you go because we know time is getting on here. You all need some sleep and Alan needs to get started with some work. But thank you for that meditation. It was beautiful. And we will look forward to seeing you and hopefully connecting in the future. Some other session along the way. And
I look forward to it, Les. It was great to be here with you. I very enjoyed it.
Thank you. And also, if anybody wants to find out about the sanctuary, the best place is to Google it and hop onto the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary website. Is that right?
Yeah, Facebook page or Google it. If you put Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary on Google, you'll find us quite easily. But we are just going over to a new website. So the old website is running down and the new website will be coming up in the next couple of weeks.
And I also understand you're doing things every day. There's always some sort of a healing thing online through Facebook or through the group. So if people are needing healing for yourself, it's a good place to go and connect and just be in that energy and connect with some of the people from the UK and the healers at the sanctuary who offer that wonderful service.
Yeah, at 10 o'clock in the morning, UK time, every day except Tuesday and Thursday, one of our presenters is on doing a healing minute, but it lasts about half an hour. But it's called the healing minute.
Oh, that's good. You can expand time as well. But look, thank you, Alan. Best of luck to everyone. Alan, you can stay on. The rest of you, thank you and have a good night. And we'll see you next month for Telos Live. And also just remember in March, we have our Uplift Summit where we'll be doing online sessions from the 11th of March to the 14th. And then we have a wonderful one-day session with some amazing guest speakers and presenters sharing their heart on the Saturday, the 16th. So hopefully we'll see you there. Take care for now, and bye to you all, and thank you once again.